Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to International Market Center's webinar today with Dawn Brinson. And the topic is reality shifts, what consumers want and how they want it. This is in partnership with Las Vegas Market, IMC High Point Market, and our Atlanta Market. Today, it'll be a great discussion, and it is also CEU accredited. So the information for that will be given to those who registered through Zoom. If you are watching via Facebook or YouTube, you can email me, Kimberly Porter, at kporter@imcenters.com, and I'll get you that information. Dawn, I'm going to let you go ahead and just start. It's a wonderful topic, and we're looking forward to hearing more about it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kimberly. And thank you, everyone, for your willingness to take your valuable time to spend with us today. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the consumer marketplace, what the signs are and what the signals are for those of us who are marketers that we can pass along to you. So it's obvious that we have been recalibrating as a society over the last year to 14 months. Sociologists and data scientists have been diving into focus groups and questions and surveys and following trends. And that's what we're going to look a little bit at today. Odd as all of this has been, we're actually at a point where there's huge opportunities for us. If you're a designer, if you're a small retailer, if you're a creative entrepreneur, if you're a manufacturer, you have some terrific opportunities. Yes, there are some challenges and some issues, and we'll talk about those as well. But this is one of those times where you have a chance to make a significant difference in your business and with your clientele. It reminds me a little bit of the 1980s when scientists created that biodome out in the desert, and they were growing all kinds of things in the optimum environment with the right kind of soil and light and heat. And they grew a grove of trees and thought that they were going to just do beautifully, and they did for a little while until they fell over. And what the scientists had forgotten was that in order for trees to grow great deep roots and strong trunks, they had to be buffeted by the wind. They had to be pushed around in order to strengthen themselves. And I think maybe the last year or year and a half has been our windstorm. We've learned to adapt and to grow stronger. So I'll leave you with that thought right now, but let's jump over to the slide deck. I'm going to share my screen here so that we can talk about the consumer marketplace. Oops, just a second. Let's try that one more time. Okay. All right. Obviously, if we could all figure out what every consumer wanted and bring it to them, we would be in really good shape. But that doesn't really happen. And I will tell you up front that for every 3 consumers that move one direction, we see 1 consumer move another direction and 1 sit on the fence. So this isn't an all or nothing economy. It's not an all or nothing society. So when I say consumers are doing this, this is the majority. This is what we're seeing as a trend. And so today, whoops, I can't seem to move my slides. Just a second. Here we go. We'll go that way. So these are the topics that we're going to talk about today. We certainly can't talk about our business, the home furnishings industry and home decor and interior design, without talking about housing and the economy. We'll also talk about buffeting factors, cultural shifts, and then how you can position yourself strategically to move forward. So buying is moving at a really, really strong pace, but inventory is low. It's this kind of push me, pull you scenario. And we'll see that throughout this conversation. This is happening, but this is pushing in a different way. So to give you a little bit of understanding about that, we're also going to look at who's moving and who's staying put, rising prices versus lower interest rates, where people are moving and their aspirational desires, and the difference between the affluent market and the affordable market. So when we're talking about housing, as you can see, buying is up, but we've been told that inventory is down, and that's true. And you can see some of the reasons. Construction had a pretty significant pause in the first part of the pandemic. We have had consistently inconsistent access to raw materials. The price of those materials are rising. But interestingly enough, according to the Wall Street Journal, people in 2020 are staying in their homes a good deal longer, 13 years, versus the same survey that was done back in 2010 when people were staying in their homes an average of 8.7 years. So that contributes to a lower inventory of houses to be able to sell, but an increase in equity in our homes, which means that people can spend that equity on remodeling, and that's making the remodeling market really, really boom. The National Association of Home Builders noted a 3.7% growth in the remodeling market in 2021 is their expectation. That equates to $352 billion. That's a lot for remodeling. And the reasons for remodeling have changed, and that's good news for us. Home Advisor advised that in 2019, the top reasons for people to remodel their homes were damage and decay. In 2020, and again in their survey just a couple of months ago at the beginning of 2021, the reason people are remodeling were lifestyle needs and desires. And all I can say is hallelujah to that. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you can leverage that on down in the conversation a bit more. Again, the National Association of Home Builders reported that single-family home construction units are expected to grow about 5% this year. That will put it at about 1.03 million units. Now, the important thing there to note is that's the first time since the Great Recession that single-family home units have exceeded 1 million in a year. So that bodes very, very well for home sales and people who want to move and people who want to move up or downsize. The other part of it is that mortgages, as you can see, are at near record lows. That really is driving a big portion of the decision on whether or not to move or stay put, whether to move from a rental unit into a single family home purchase. Sales prices, however, are up. That would seem like it would be a bad thing, but it's really not, and I'll tell you why. Redfin, which is a tech-backed brokerage firm, reported that in 2020, home prices went up an average of 15%. But that doesn't seem to be stopping consumers. It's not stopping them from buying, nor is it stopping them from wanting to upgrade their home, bring in interior design services, and buy home furnishings. They see those low mortgage rates as the key to getting a really, really good value right now. And so they're leveraging that and bringing things into their home. So that bodes very, very well for both the retail home furnishings market and for the interior design trade. The next is an interesting statistic, I thought. 61% of US workers are contemplating a professional or lifestyle change, with nearly half of them saying that remote work is going to be essentially their new norm. Well, that's very interesting, not only because they need home offices and other things that seem pretty obvious, but if you work remotely, you can, to the most part, choose where you want to live. You don't have to be tied to the city in which your company is located. And so there's a lot of aspirational moving right now, or desire to move. And I will tell you that the South is leading the way, and the South being everything from Texas eastward and swooping up the East Coast to Virginia. Dallas-Fort Worth is leading the charge, but they're certainly not the only ones. Phoenix is doing very well. Atlanta, the entire state of Florida, North Carolina, my home state, and then 2 other locations in Texas are doing quite well, Houston and Austin. But they're not the only ones. Idaho is having a boom, so is Colorado. But Dallas-Fort Worth seems to be outstripping everybody else. If you see the notation down there, Dallas-Fort Worth had more single-family home closings last year than the entire state of California. That's a big number. And OfferUp, which is the reselling app, you may have it on your phone, did a survey, and they found out that 4 out of 10 home buyers were buying bigger. And the reasons for buying bigger were actually to have more room per person, but also to have more livability in homes. So that's also good news. The other piece of this that the National Association of Home Buyers mentioned in their study that they put out in conjunction with the International Builders Show at the beginning of this year is that the single family rental market is also up, expected to rise anywhere from 3.5%, which is where it is right now, to between 5 and 6% in the next 24 months. That's being attributed to people not really wanting to live in multifamily rental units anymore, preferring to have their own space. And so there's some real opportunity to work with developers and investors on single family rental units and the repeat business that's associated with that. So let's look at some other avenues, some opportunities for you. Let's look at the economic picture here. This time last year, 22 million Americans had lost their job in just a 2-month period. Fortunately, we've regained about half of those jobs. On the other hand, we haven't regained about half of those jobs. So we're kind of sitting on the fence in terms of feeling really good about the jobs market right now. However, the Federal Reserve notes that personal savings has grown significantly. They say that household net worth is at an all-time high right now at $122.9 trillion. That's a lot of money that's been saved and a lot of money that can be spent on lifestyle. New online brokerage accounts have gone through the roof. This isn't just the Reddit folks trying to save GameStop. There are lots of new people moving into the marketplace. And obviously the surging stock market is good for the affluent side of American society. The National Retail Federation is estimating that we are seeing the fastest retail growth in almost 2 decades. Certainly in 70 years is the number that they put on it. And MasterCard does an analysis that they call Spending Pulse. Well, they noted that furnishings were outpacing other retail in the month of March and in several months prior to that. But here were the numbers behind that, which I found staggering. They said that furnishings purchases were up 64.8% over the same time in 2020, which is expected because March of 2020 was not a great time. But that number is actually on top of a 26.9% increase from 2019. So people are finally interested in upgrading their homes, buying for their homes, finding things that are important to them. You know, we've talked about this pent-up demand for as long as I have been in the furniture industry. I think we're actually seeing that now. The other thing that I'll note is that, again, the National Retail Federation was quoted as saying that they are seeing a shift away from goods. When the pandemic hit, goods became the thing that everybody was purchasing. That's where they were spending their money, whether or not it was paper towels or soup, and away from services. In 2021, the National Retail Federation is expecting to see that shift right back into services. And that, again, is a very good harbinger, especially for the interior design trade and for anyone who offers services as well as goods, or services as a full business model. So what opportunities might we see? Well, as I mentioned before, we're finally hearing consumers acknowledging all those things that designers and marketers like myself have been saying for years: lifestyle, aspiration, thoughtful use of the home, all of those sorts of things. So we'll talk about what the right connections are and how to make those connections with consumers. We also have some studies that are revealing some new potential target clientele that you might want to look into. We'll delve a little more into the services versus replacing services versus goods, and then mechanisms to reward clients. How can you create loyalty? So I would say, as a marketer, my background is in marketing communications and marketing strategy. So those are the tools that I take out of my toolbox all the time. And what I would say to you is that this is finally the time where what we've been saying for all of these years marries with what consumers are feeling and what they say their desires are. So I would say to you, communicate the devil out of this. Message every time you can through emotion, talking about aspiration, talking about how design, how home furnishings, how interiors can change your life for the better, how technology can bring a sense of security, how you can provide the services and the goods that really meet the needs of consumers today. And there really are needs, there are cravings that we'll talk about in a little while. And align those communications to fit what is special about you. We certainly don't want you trying to be everything to everybody. That doesn't help in the marketing world. But maybe you're a new home specialist. Maybe you create customization out of something that's a little more standardized. You can talk about that and you can fit that to all of those people who are looking to buy new homes. Maybe you're a remodel or restoration expert. Really leverage that side of things. Maybe, again, as we mentioned before, that you would like to find a channel of business where you can work with builders and investors on those single family rental units. There's a lot of repeat business in that. Maybe you also want to work with affluent clients who have second homes, on flips or Airbnbs. Not all clients are loving their second homes. Many are, but others are looking to unload those now because they know now's a good time. And while we're talking about Airbnb, let's don't forget that they had a huge valuation recently. And I think that this is one of those kind of anecdotal studies that supports a lot of what marketers like me do and the way we present things. Here's the actual data, and I want to read this. As of December, the Wall Street Journal reported that Airbnb's valuation had grown to $117.7 billion. That's $40 billion more than Hilton, Hyatt, and Marriott combined, even though those three companies have much higher profits. So Airbnb is the wave of now and the wave of the future. How might you be able to leverage that? Would an affluent client want you to help them kit out their home for Airbnb? Maybe. That's a possibility. Now, another interesting thing that has come to the forefront recently is a new group of potential clients for you: affluent singles. Typically we have thought about couples or families as our target markets more often than not, But affluent singles are growing, and they have a very interesting psychological perspective right now on what has happened. The New York Times recently reported on something called the boredom economy. And they talked about how boredom is a luxury in some ways. People who have time to be bored usually not only have time on their hands, but they have money to do something with. So they're not the ones who are harried and having to run around and fill their hours. They have a little more luxury to that. So the people who are often the most bored, according to this really deep study that was done, tend to be singles, and we can understand that. They live alone. Well, here we have a single and affluent potential client who's bored, and the boredom leads to a number of different things. There is a woman named Erin Westgate at the University of Florida, and I snicker a little bit because her specialty is studying boredom. I had no idea you could even do that, but she does. And what she said is that these feelings of boredom that we're seeing from these single affluents result in different kinds of behaviors. For example, increased novelty seeking and reward sensitivity. The other thing is that she says it makes people seek out, I want to get her quote right, not just something else to do, but something meaningful. Well, to marketers like me, that says we have some psychographics to work with to reach these affluent singles. We talk to them about their aspirations and about their dreams and about fulfilling something meaningful to them via their homes. It's a great opportunity. So I would urge you to look into that market. Other things that we can look at are what are home buyers and homeowners saying that they want from their homes nowadays. No one is surprised that kitchens are up in there. Cooking from home, entertaining from home. It's an obvious choice. Home fitness. No longer is a gym membership the gold standard. A home gym is the gold standard now. Home entertainment spaces, whether that's for audio-visual kinds of home entertainment, home gaming, whatever it happens to be, home entertainment spaces are very high on the list. Outdoor living, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Restfulness areas, places not only to sleep, but to recharge, to meditate, to quieten down are becoming increasingly important. Home offices, obviously. We talked about a lot about that over the last 14 months, but we'll talk a little more about that. And then dedicated spaces for children, whether or not that's room for them to remote learn or homeschool, or whether or not it's dedicated play areas. Now, I will tell you, of all of these, outdoor living is the one that is going absolutely bonkers right now. Certainly others, but everybody seems to be involved in the outdoors and bringing the outdoors in and bringing the indoors out and living in that space. And again, sort of anecdotal evidence of this that helps us who are marketers really kind of support what we're seeing is Scott's Miracle-Gro. That one brand increased their sales more than 30% in their fiscal year that ended September 2020. 30% during 2020. Well, imagine what it is now that we're into planting season. That would be crazy. They had a record $4.13 billion in sales just in 2020 through September of 2020. They saw so much potential in what they were studying as their consumers that they bought their first Super Bowl ad this year. So I would say this gives us reason for all of us to rethink the opportunity to work on or offer things like decks, patios, porches, hardscapes, pool areas, pool houses, potting sheds, all of those sorts of things have enormous value to your customer right now. So find a way to bring that into the conversation. Before, we mentioned that furnishing sales were up significantly as reported in March. And while that's great for retailers, that may not seem like such a great thing for the interior designers of the world. It's a little bit of a disconnect at first glance for designers who might also want to offer home furnishings as part of their business. But I say, no, it's a false choice between goods and services. Market research shows us that shopper enthusiasm has a distinct and measurable carryover effect. And what I mean by that is the studies show that when someone goes into a retail store to shop, particularly furniture, they were looking at, in this particular study, they were looking at movers who were shopping in furniture stores. And every time one of these new movers went into a furniture store, 5 of their colleagues learned about it from the mover. And for every 5, one of those would also go shopping in a furniture store. So that means 20% of every mover's friends, family, colleagues, neighbors are shopping in the same time frame simply because that one mover was also shopping and talking about it. So that bodes super well for both the interior design trade and for retailers. And the nice thing is that 23% of those who went shopping because they heard their friend or neighbor go shopping repeat shopped in that same store. So that's another reason to really kind of leverage these movers and to get them excited and to get them into shopping, because shopping has a wonderful halo effect. Not everyone who shops is going to be a DIY buyer or a DIY interior designer. They're going to want those interior design services. And we believe from the study that the same information is true for interior design buyers. So when someone is buying the services and the goods of an interior designer, 20% of their universe knows about it and takes action too. So that creates a great deal of opportunity in the marketplace. Maybe you want to create a referral program at that point. Maybe you want to create a loyalty program or an ambassadorial program. Or maybe you want to offer educational opportunities for clients and their friends so that you can get in front of those additional 20% of interested buyers. You know, kind of think pampered chef for the design world. What might you be able to do with that? How might you be able to create an affiliate program, for example, with some of your best clients? There are some real opportunities if you just sit and think about them. Now, not everything is wonderful. There are obviously some pressures that are pushing on us, and there are some things that we can't change. And we're going to look a little bit at those, particularly these 3 things that you see here: raw material shortages and delays, price increases, and e-commerce adoption. How might those play into what's going on in the industry, and how can we find opportunity even in those challenges? Well, as late as March, you know, the industry is still seeing orders outstripping shipments, which means we're still creating backlogs. And that's a tough road to hoe. But that gives you an opportunity to become the delay in pricing expert for your clients. Explain to them what's going on. Give them an opportunity to understand and for you to take the lead and to be seen as the expert in that. I've seen a number of people use a little bit of humor in that way, and some others take a more serious approach to it. Whichever way is right for you it puts you in a leadership role with your clients. The foam shortages continue. I mean, even as late as yesterday, I was talking to some folks who are in the foam industry, and allotments are growing, so that's good news. But until petroleum refinery and the chemicals that come off of petroleum is back online and cranking up, well, we're going to continue to see some shortages there, and there's just not a lot that we can do about that. Freight issues are going to continue to bedevil us, whether or not you're freighting across the country and having difficulty finding trucks to freight things, or whether you're bringing them in from offshore and containers are just impossible to find and so costly. That continues to be an issue. And then obviously the qualified and available labor pool to work in home furnishings. Until we see that diminish, we're going to continue to have some hiccups and some lurches. But here's some other things that I would recommend to you. We are seeing prices rise, but that's okay too. Jack Kleinitz from the National Retail Federation said that normalizing of conditions will cause households to turn to spending, as we talked about before, more on services and service-based businesses, which is a good indicator for positioning yourself when you are a provider of services and solutions versus those who present themselves as just a handler of merchandise. So here's what I would say to that. If that's true, and I think it is, I think that you position yourself with a narrative, as we talked about, comfort, mindfulness, health and lifestyle solutions, ways that you can really skirt around these issues that we're having and bring that desire out in your clientele. Once you do that, we see from our interior design clients and our manufacturing clients a real relationship being built, a true loyalty that comes from that. The other avenue that I would suggest is to look at your processes and to create what I'm calling ultra-personal levels of service. Find ways that you can do things for clients that are unexpected and also incredibly helpful. An example of that is interior designer Dan Foley was recently quoted in a story that was called Reimagining Luxury in the Time of Coronavirus. And what he said was that most of his very affluent clients already had robust home offices, so he didn't need to offer that. But what they needed and what he was able to provide were professional level audio video services so that they looked and sounded their best, whatever they were doing these kinds of video conferences and calls. So he brought in truly professional lighting to be installed, professional audio equipment, so that these super luxury clients felt completely comfortable conducting business from something that wasn't their offices. If there's a bright side in all of these price increases, the Federal Reserve has said that they believe that these higher prices are unlikely to be sustainable. That to me sounds absolutely wonderful. I hope that that's the case. Their quote was that they say supply will eventually catch up with demand, and that the labor market is keeping wages in check, and that the competitive e-commerce climate is limiting sellers' pricing power. So here's what I say to the Federal Reserve: make it happen, folks. On the other hand, I will say that a survey conducted in February by Ad Age and Harris Poll showed that those who are in high earning categories are very eager to spend. The number was that 30% of households making $100,000 or more a year said that they were going to spend somewhere between somewhat and significantly more than they spent last spring. Well, that's wonderful. We want them to spend that on home furnishings and interior design. So again, message that to your luxury clients. Give them a reason to take that money that's ready to come out of their pockets and spend it on you and what you offer. And then I like to talk about unexpected service. And remember that ideas and creativities are services. Examples of that might be, can you recreate a mud room in such a way that someone could actually change clothes in there so that they could change clothes before they come into the body of their house? We're seeing a lot of installation in luxury markets of whole home HEPA filtration systems. Again, leading to that sense of security, confidence in their home, feeling comfortable there. Textiles embedded with antimicrobial nanotechnology, even down to using stainless steel fixtures and knobs because they repel germs. Maybe even in some of the most luxurious markets, I've heard of homeowners wanting to have essentially receiving rooms. This is a place where your goods can be delivered, your groceries can be brought into a climate-controlled space that's not actually inside your home. There's a sort of an antechamber there. And taking that even further, there have been suggestions that we'll go back to, in some cases, this receiving room as parlor, where people can come in, take off their shoes, make themselves comfortable, be received there before they actually come into the house. So all of these kinds of unexpected turns and twists. What can you offer? What can you bring to your clients that might fit those desires that we've talked about in an unexpected way? Here's another one, Latch. I don't know if you're familiar with Latch, but they are a maker of smart locks and home security systems. They recently merged with another company and had an IPO, and that deal valued Latch at $1.56 billion, according to the Wall Street Journal. That's a lot of smart locks, folks. So how can we use that kind of smart technology to help our clients feel better about their homes? Just another little tidbit that's food for thought. And then naturally, we've got e-commerce to talk about. Since the pandemic began, I'm sure that you have heard that all of us have crammed a decade's worth of technology adoption into a year's time frame. And we have. I mean, who would have thought that 14 months ago, this would be the common way for us to talk? But Content Marketing Institute reported that 66% of marketers, people like me and people who work for big brands and small companies, plan to make significant website investments in 2021. That's 2 out of every 3 marketers. We wouldn't be spending our money and our clients' money if we didn't believe that online was an important resource. And a significant portion of that, my friends, is going to be video. Video is the fastest growing and the fastest utilized part of the online marketplace right now. So why is that? Well, in 2020, people had time to spend with video, and it has not abated. Studies show that viewers viewed twice as much user-generated content in 2020 as they ever had before. That averages 4 hours per week for every American. 4 hours per week of watching somebody else's videos online. Well, there's some real opportunity there as far as I'm concerned. So how can you as designers and creators take advantage of that? Well, Instagram Reels, Instagram Live, IGTV, what we're doing here, Facebook Live, Vimeo, YouTube, all of those platforms give you a way to be right in the video and online mix in a way that works, in a way that people are consuming and wanting to consume. Those kinds of platforms could be really interesting for what's called live selling or live streaming these days. Fashion and cosmetics have gone great guns on that. And certainly Americans have not adopted it quite as fast as some other places in the country, in the world, but it's happening. It could be a real boon for people who sell things like one-of-a-kind designs, vintage products. What about makers of custom upholstery and case goods that could be live streamed and live sold? There's a real opportunity there too. Now, if your clientele is Gen X, and for those of you who can't keep it in their heads, which I can't, Gen Xers are pretty much 41 years old to 56 years old right now. They are the strongest adopters of video. So I would think that if those are your clients, you would be finding ways to use video services to connect with them. I think one real advantage for you that isn't available to those digitally native or online only companies is to create an online experience that then translates into your physical brick and mortar or in-store or in-shop experience, and create something that is absolutely memorable in person that can't be had over here in the online world. When you connect those two and you create that wow moment in person, then you have really created loyalty, or what we call stickiness, as marketers. And you've done something that those big guns that are online only can't even approach. So think about that. What would you need to do to create something really memorable in person? How would you change your hospitality? How would you change your sales opportunities? How would you change educating people? How would you change how they experience you and your products? I would say that that's going to be a significant turning point for those who are both digital and have in real life shops, stores, brick and mortar facilities. And here's another thing about shopping in real life now. That same study that I mentioned before, the Ad Age Harris poll, showed that 62% of Americans said that they intend to shop at least once a week in stores throughout the spring, that they're looking forward to getting back to being in store. That's almost 2 out of 3 Americans. That bodes very, very well for those of you who have studios or who have shops or who have retail locations or even pop-ups. So keep in mind that while we're talking about these services and goods are kind of the key to success. And finally, agility. Well, that term started in the software world, but what it really means is in the online world now, you get points actually when you decide to try something new and do it out there for the world to see. So you decide that you want to do Instagram Reels. You do not want to be the one who waits until they have everything perfect. You don't want to be the one to wait until you know everything about it. You'll be left in the dust. Go ahead and get online. Try it, refine it, fix it, do it again, rinse, repeat until you feel good about it. Those Gen Xers that I was talking about earlier, they actually have said that they prefer to see people and companies grow their digital online presence. They want to see it happen, that it's authentic, that it's real, and it's okay when failures happen. They give them credit for being out there and being early adopters. So don't hang back. Start. That's what agility is all about. So what are the cultural shifts that we're seeing? Data scientists are talking about something called a social renaissance. Well, that's wonderful. They are talking about this happening as soon as this summer. And that means that sort of harkens back to the roaring 20s when we came out of the first pandemic, which was flu. And we saw that spending and enthusiasm just took over, that there was a more expansive thinking about culture and society and race and norms and acceptances. And data scientists are saying we're seeing that again. So that bodes very, very well for what's coming in the summer and fall. We also know that that's what gave rise to sort of this modern day marketing and advertising, which no longer depended upon features and benefits, but on creating an emotional connection between the consumer and the brand or the product. So what I would say there is, if this is true, and I think it is for a part of the population, again, make those emotional connections with people. The other part of this is a demand from our society for what I call walking the cultural walk. They want to know that you are taking a look, turning the lens inward to you and your company, and making some important revelations. That doesn't mean that you have to be political. That doesn't mean you have to take a stand. But what they want to see is, for example, understanding how you take care of your employees. That would be a good example of sort of walking the walk. And then feeling secure. That is so important right now. We've had so many challenges, and we've talked about all of those, but home is where people say they feel most secure and they feel most comfortable. So here's what I'm saying to you. You have innate talents and abilities to make people feel good, safe, secure, and happy in their homes. You can restore their equilibrium. We have had all kinds of damage to our psyches. And you, as retailers, as purveyors of home goods, as creators of home goods, and as interior specialists, have the ability to really help people feel good about where they are and about where they live. And in that, you're creating a sense of well-being throughout all of this. Businesses are also in particular need of your gifts, because if half the number of their workers are going to be working remotely, they're going to have to rethink what their spaces are like. And for those people who are coming back to work, how do we take care of those people? You could offer your services to them too. So there's a great opportunity there as well. And then finally, homes is all-encompassing spaces. We've talked a little bit about all the things that a consumer wants in their home now, but we really want it to be all-encompassing. We want it to have a connection to the outdoors. We want it to have fitness facilities. We want it to have a receiving space where we feel good. It's all a very tall order, but you folks, you are the people who have the ability to conceptualize this, to visualize it, and to bring it to life for American homeowners. So I say, good for you, good on you. Thank you for your talents. Please go and do this for as many of your clients as you possibly can. Now, having said that, yes, we do still have a lot of challenges, but I, as a marketer, believe that this is an opportunity. This is probably the opportunity of a generation for us. So let's look at what it would take to create a strategy for you. I call this your rock and roll strategy. That's because I want you to kind of embody the bravado of a hairband rock and roller, swagger. What is it that says, you know what? People pay good money for my talents. They come to hear me. I can be on stage and they love me. They love what I do. They love what I bring to them. I can do anything because I'm a rock star. That's where I want you to live right now. Forget all of the logistics and the I can't do's and I don't have enough people and I don't know how to do this. That's all just logistical details. Don't even worry about those right now. Think about what you can do, what you could do if you got those things out of the way. How would you create your marketing communications? What will you say to your clients and your potential clients? How will you create this idea of radical service, this sort of ultra personal service that's going to make your clients just sing? How are you going to embrace digital? What does that look like for you? And how can you do it so that your clients love you for it? Really spend some time sitting and thinking about new channels of business. There are opportunities out there that we haven't uncovered yet, a few that we've talked about already. But where can you also insert your talents to the benefit of your company and to your clients? How can you create that memorable shopping experience? How can you get in the heads of your clients and say, wow, this is exactly what I didn't know I wanted or needed, but I love it. Thank you for bringing it to me. And then that agility, getting out there and just doing it, just pushing forward. I can't tell you how important I think that is as a marketer, for you to just try. And then folks, keep that swagger going. You've got the goods, you've got the talents that are going to really make a difference going forward. So thank you so very much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions that may have come up, or if you'd like to contact me afterwards, you can certainly do so. Kim has all of that information. I'm going to stop the sharing and see if there's anything else that I can do for you at this point. Thank you. Kim, is there anything else?
Hi, Dawn. We had one question that came in, and it is, what do you see happening, if anything, for the fine art market?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. I think the fine art market is actually something that is probably not as high a priority as some of the other things that we talked about, but art being such an emotional purchase and a way for people to express themselves and a way for people to feel really engaged. I think fine art has the opportunity to really talk those messages up and to create a sense that fine art is something that improves your life, not just improves your home. It's not about just making it pretty, but art as a way to improve your life, to make it better, to make it richer, to make it deeper, I think is where you want to go with that.
I couldn't agree more. And Dawn, I just want to thank you for just encouraging those watching today and the industry. It's needed. And you gave quite a few different tips and information which people are yearning for. And again, on behalf of International Market Centers, we want to thank you for joining us today virtually for today's presentation of Reality Shifts, What Consumers Want and How They Want It, with Dawn Brinson with The Media Matters. We actually just concluded 2 of our on-site markets for Las Vegas and Atlanta, and are getting excited and ready for our upcoming June High Point market, which is June 5th through 9th. Our summer markets, July for Atlanta and August for Las Vegas, are just around the corner, and we hope that you will be able to join us for one of those if you can't make it to High Point. As Dawn just discussed, a lot of business is changing in new ways and returning, and being on-site offers new opportunities to see some of the products firsthand and to meet with vendors who can help your businesses. And if you're not able to join us yet on-site, that's okay. We have resources available on our websites and encourage you to check those out. We have information regarding registration, upcoming presentations and CEU opportunities, exhibitor information, new product lines, and more. Those websites are LasVegasMarket.com, IMCHighPointMarket.com, and AmericasMart.com. We thank you and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.